The brutal secrets of Russian Systema. 8 moves too dangerous for MMA. After the Soviet Union collapsed, former Special Forces instructors, men who had trained for Afghanistan, for Chechnya, for operations that never made Western news, began teaching outside the military for the first time. What they brought with them was a system built not for competition, not for demonstration, but for one purpose: ending threats in the shortest possible time in any environment against any number of opponents. The system was called Systemma. 8 of its core techniques have never appeared in any combat sport rule set, not because they are ineffective, but because they are too effective for any rule set to accommodate. Welcome to Martial Road, where warriors live forever. Before we get to the 8 techniques, you need to understand what Systemma actually is, because most of what you've seen online is not what you think it is. The demonstrations that went viral in the early 2000s were not Systemma. Stay with us to find out. The viral videos of practitioners waving their hands and students falling without contact. That is not what this video is about. That is a specific branch of post-Soviet commercial Systemma, built for a civilian market after 1991. Military Systemma was never theatrical. The actual lineage runs like this. Russian combat methodology has roots in Cossack fighting traditions, specifically Buza, from northwestern Russia, and Skobar, styles from the Pskov and Novgorod regions. Folk combat methods focused on disrupting structure and breathing, 2 concepts that would become central to military Systemma. In the Soviet era, these methods were absorbed and systematized under the NKVD and later the KGB. The primary figure in modern military Systemma was Mikhail Ryabko, a career military officer who trained under Soviet Special Forces instructors from childhood and served in multiple classified deployments. Ryabko passed away in April 2023, leaving behind one of the most documented legacies in Russian martial arts history. His student, Vladimir Vasiliev, brought a civilian version to North America in the 1990s and continues to teach today. The military version was built around 4 core principles, not techniques: breathing, movement, structure, relaxation. Every technique is an application of these 4 combined. You cannot ban a principle. This is why Systemma's most dangerous elements have never been regulated out of any format. Here are the 8 techniques. Technique number 1, the breathing strike. Every combat sport teaches practitioners to exhale on exertion, to brace the core before impact. Systemma inverts this. The breathing strike times delivery to the exact moment the opponent exhales and their core structure is momentarily decompressed. The biomechanical logic: during exertion, intra-abdominal pressure drops, the diaphragm rises, and the torso's natural rigidity decreases measurably. A strike delivered in this window penetrates deeper with less force, reaching internal structures that a braced core would otherwise protect. Why it is absent from MMA. Sport fighting's pace eliminates the tactical patience required to read breathing cycles. Military Systemma develops this over years. A sport context gives you rounds. Technique 2, working the freeze window. Systemma psychological strike targets what practitioners call the freeze window, the 200 to 500 millisecond gap after a startle response where the nervous system is committed to the defensive movement and has not yet reset. The strike does not hit the person, it hits the window. A committed highline movement triggers the cover response. Before the opponent recovers, a second movement arrives, not to the original target, but to whatever opening the defensive response created. The opponent's fear generates the vulnerability. Why it is absent from MMA. Trained fighters compress the freeze window significantly. The technique was designed for zero-range encounters where that window is wide. Technique 3, structural collapse, breaking the postural chain. Every takedown system in combat sports involves leg contact or clinch-to-trip mechanics. Systemma structural collapse does neither. It disrupts the base through upper body contact alone, applying simultaneous force to 2 points on the torso that create opposing rotational loads in the spine. The postural system maintains stability through reflexive tension chains from feet to head. Load 2 points in opposing directions simultaneously, and the chain cannot maintain coherent tension. The legs fail, not because they were swept, but because the postural command was interrupted. This principle appears in Cossack Buza traditions as breaking the center, predating modern biomechanical research by centuries. Why it is absent from MMA. It requires zero-range upper body access and an entry angle that standard grappling guard positions eliminate. Technique 4, the zero-range neck technique. The cervical spine has fixed ranges in 3 axes. Military Systema's close-range neck techniques apply force at the intersection of two simultaneously, rotation combined with lateral flexion, creating a loading angle the neck's musculature cannot efficiently counter. A critical distinction from sport neck cranks. This variant is applied standing at zero range, using body weight rotation rather than limb leverage. Less force required, which is precisely why it demands more control. A leverage-based crank gives resistance feedback as force builds. This technique can move past safe limits without that feedback. Historical documentation. Present in World War II Soviet NKVD close combat guides and post-war Spetsnaz training manuals. Why it is absent from MMA. It requires a standing zero-range position no sport context creates. Technique 5. The crowd entry. Every combat sport is one-on-one. Military Systema was built from the beginning for multiple opponents. The crowd entry is a movement principle. Position must at all times ensure only one attacker has a clear engagement angle. The technique moves through attackers rather than away from them, using the group itself as an obstacle. The closest attacker blocks the next. No one gets a clean line. The footwork derives from Cossack traditions, circular stepping with constant level changes that deny any attacker a stable platform. Why it is absent from MMA. Combat sports are one-on-one by design. This may be the most practical significant technique on this list, and the least visible in any sport context. Technique 6. Using the room. Systema's environmental training treats every surface as a weapon or tool. Walls, corners, door frames, furniture, directing an opponent into hard surfaces rather than throwing them away from one. Most throwing arts project the opponent outward onto open space. Military Systema is designed for rooms, corridors, and stairwells, using the geometry of the space against the threat rather than creating distance from it. Why it is absent in MMA. The octagon is padded, open, and controlled. Environmental training has no applicable sport format. Technique 7. Knife control without disarming. Most knife defense systems focus on disarming. Military Systema's objective is controlling the weapon arm as a reference point while simultaneously applying a finishing technique to the body. Disarming is a secondary outcome, not the goal. Attempting to disarm creates a contest over the weapon, consuming time and splitting attention. Systema treats the grip itself as a structural handle. The attacker's commitment to holding the weapon creates a predictable tension. The tension is the entry point. Soviet military doctrine states it plainly. Never compete for an object. Work around the object to the person. Why it is absent from MMA. Live blade scenarios have no sport application. Technique 8. The strike with no telegraph. The eighth technique is not a specific movement. It is a product of a specific training methodology. Military Systema conditioning develops the ability to deliver significant force with none of the preparation signals a trained fighter reads. No hip rotation, no shoulder load, no weight shift. Power comes from relaxation, breathing, and sequential muscular engagement that does not follow the kinetic patterns combat sports train fighters to detect. The result: a strike from a position that looks passive, arriving without the telegraphing trained fighters used to trigger their defensive response. This is not a special ability. It is the product of a system that deliberately removes all habitual power generation movements and rebuilds striking from neutral, stripping every preparation signal the opponent's training looks for. The process takes years. Why it is absent from MMA. Sport rewards maximum force, which accompanies maximum telegraphing. Systema trades some peak power for invisibility. Military context rewards the strike no one sees coming. Systema's reputation has been badly damaged by its theatrical civilian branch. The no-touch demonstrations are real. Compliant partners who expect to fall will fall. Not evidence of anything supernatural. Evidence of a training environment that stopped pressure testing itself. Military Systema was continuously tested. The Chechnya conflicts, Spetsnaz in close-quarter urban environments against committed armed opposition, provided brutal reality testing for every technique. What survived that testing is what this video has described. Every technique on this list targets something that cannot be fully trained away. The breathing cycle, the freeze window, the postural reflex chain, the startle response. The Cossack traditions feeding into Systema applied versions of this logic 4 centuries ago. Soviet military research systematized it. Everything that did not survive genuine resistance was removed. The reason these 8 techniques are absent from MMA is not a failure of MMA. It is a difference in purpose. MMA is designed for matched opponents where both participants leave under their own power. Military Systema was designed for none of those conditions. Respecting both answers requires being honest about what each system was actually built for. Stay strong, stay informed, subscribe to Martial Road. Which technique has the most crossover value into sport training, and which is irretrievably outside any sport context?